Alright, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com, also video presentation, comments. So, I'll probably do this in pieces, and these subjects are really getting off the track, but whatever. So, somebody brings it up. I did slightly mention this drone crap, and all of this hype and hysteria, frankly, I don't get any of it, frankly. There's nothing they can show you. Okay, I mean, this is almost like when the government released the secret UFO tapes, and one of them you could clearly see it was a duck flying. Okay, it was a duck. All right, I mean, it's that ridiculous. And you're saying, well, from this information, people extrapolate all of this bullshit from these. Again, we're going back to like the 1950s and 60s when they had the silly little fuzzy black and white photo of some blob in the sky. And the obvious ones, where you could see the string. I mean, it's a Sasquatch thing or something. All right, so anyway, this guy writes this whole comment about his hysteria. Gary, all I ask is that you call me crazy, an idiot, paranoid, or anything scathing comment you wish. That would be better than what I'm thinking now. So I'm just saying, why are you buying into this hype and crap about these drones when they can't show you a decent picture? So again, I went looking for the videos, right? It's little blinky lights. I'm just saying, yes, sure, somebody's on a covert action and they have 7 LEDs on their drone, 7 lights on their drone. Why would they put lights on their drone if they're doing some covert action? Right there, you're saying, oh, well, that's pretty silly, right? And clearly, you can buy these drones for $15, and so, this is not mysterious either. And you can't realistically, it's very difficult to tell how big the drone is because you can't tell the distance very well in the sky, especially at night. So that really fails. I didn't see a single video that demonstrated that any of these drones were big. Some people are saying as big as a car. And there's no evidence like, oh, you can hear the sound of it. I mean, big drones are loud. Nothing. And it's a real thing. I mean, drones now are a thing, right? I mean, I'm pretty close to a park, baseball field. And there might be people that now and then take their drones out there and play with them. Because let's say 3 times this summer, I heard the little bzzz sound. And, oh yeah, there was a drone flying overhead. No big deal. It's a little toy drone. And you just say, what do they think these drones can do? What magical thing is the drone going to do? Drop bombs? I mean, what, I mean, realistically, yeah. I mean, if they had anthrax, they could use drones and dump it on you. But the other thing I thought of was, when they have these stupid spectaculars for New Year's Eve, you can go to these different countries and look at the video of these spectaculars. And they're all drone controlled. They have these drones that lift up all these lights and do this whole fucking goddamn laser show. And they're all drones. So don't you get it? I mean, drones are part of reality now. They're going to be in the sky. It's going to happen. You're going to see one now and then. But yeah, I'm just saying, I was just so... I called it fake news from the beginning because, yes, there's no logic to it. I mean, I could imagine that some scientific organization, like they put up weather balloons, now they put up weather drones, and maybe they're analyzing carbon dioxide or doing some other kind of bullshit. But what would you use one for? And then especially this idea of Volkswagen-sized drones. What do you need that big a drone for? Wait, is it Amazon? And just a few years ago, Amazon was talking about delivering packages with drones. Why wouldn't people just assume, oh, Amazon must be working on that package delivery system? No, they didn't say that. They got all paranoid that the Iranians are bombing us with drones. I mean, but yeah, so I went and looked, and you're just saying, how come no news organization has any video except blinky, blinky, blinky in the dark, right? And the only daylight ones I saw were photos. They weren't videos. So I didn't see any video of a daylight drone, just a static image. And you're saying, what the fuck? So what is all this bullshit? So I don't know why it got hyped. I don't know why the government's saying, why doesn't the government explain? I don't know why the government doesn't explain by just saying people are assholes. They think airplanes are drones. I mean, they have the same, they have light configurations. All the aircraft have to have little blinky lights on them. And the fact is, when a plane's far away and it's coming towards you, it's going to look like it's standing still. I mean, it's all just so fucking dumb. And there's a giant airports in New Jersey. I mean, Newark. So it's just, I mean, it's a hub, there's Kennedy, Newark, and LaGuardia, and it's just this huge amount of airplanes always flying around northern New Jersey. So not a news flash that you might see some planes in the sky. They fly over here, depending on which way the wind's blowing. And the weather's been a certain way lately, so the planes are probably using a different route. They haven't been flying overhead lately. But, in the summer, they're going right over our house almost. It's just, it's a little spooky. They're like, they got their landing gear already down when they're going over the house, so they're really not going very fast and are quite loud. But anyway, not very important, but I'm just saying it's part of the whole story. This is quack like fake news, look like fake news, talk like fake news, bullshit politicians fake. I mean, the whole thing just has this insane stink of just completely fake, phony, manufactured hysteria, that there isn't a kernel of anything here. It's just that, two people called up and said, there's a drone in the sky. And all of a sudden, everybody started overreacting that there's drones in the sky. So they all started looking for drones. And then the more they talk about drones, the more people see drones. And it's just, it's complete vapor hysteria. There's no real here. There's just vapor. And so it's just more evidence that just people are just so... They're so fucking drony, drony, Borgy, drony, predictably stupid, reactionary asswipes. So anyway, Jason, lighten up. I don't, it's hard for me to say. I mean, you're really afraid. You saw those videos and it made you afraid. You're scared of something. If somebody wants to anthrax you, all they have to do is spray it out the back of their car. They don't even have to deposit it with a drone. So I mean, there's just so it's just Well, anyway, and then they had, there was some news story about some town where one of them crashed, right? And so apparently they went out with a whole bunch of cops and four-wheel drives and all kinds of stuff into this field to go probably pick up a toy drone. And, they wouldn't talk about it, though. They were all hush-hush. Can't talk about it. Can't talk about it. And you're just saying, what is all of that about, though? I mean, that's the funny part, right? It's what is all that about? All this nobody can answer simple questions. It's a top secret. We found a toy. We found a kid's drone. Top secret. Anyway. Oh, we have to analyze it for Iranian fingerprints. I don't know. It just... you're just... I mean, it's just so fucking stupid. I mean, you don't need more evidence that there's a problem than a few crappy videos of blinking lights in the sky. I mean, come on. You gotta demand better than that to say, there's drones attacking. Come on. A lot better than that. Alright. So, back to real physics. Well, physics. Their physics is crap. Obviously, my half will be the real part. Oh. So this asshole. So you draw it all out, you explain it all, and then they just do this. They just ignore everything you said in the video and just repeat the same absolute crap. And so it's like, what the fuck? I have to really do this. So I'm going to do it again, just because it's just, this is, they're showing you right to my face, right to your face, showing you it doesn't matter. Don't bother making an argument, because we will pay zero attention to the argument and just recite God is great. And that's it. Allah, blah, 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 blah. All right. Let's see. When the surface rejects the motion, which is a reflection, okay, it doesn't have any choice. It goes in, creates a higher pressure. The higher pressure just pushes it back out again. That's the rejection. From the lighter object, so this is the case of something light hitting something heavy. Doesn't matter, frankly. But anyway, yes, this is the case of something light hitting something heavy, or something with opposing momentums, and something with less momentum hitting something with greater momentum, you could argue. How does that happen? So I explained it. I drew it. What mechanism causes the lighter object to turn away without pushing the heavier object? I explained it, for fuck's sake. So I'll do it again. I'll illustrate again, and it's not going to be any different. The explanation will be the same. It's just that we'll just watch them ignore it again. So I used the, I think, good example of a balloon-like object. Right? So you have a balloon-like object. And the fact is, if I dent it, okay, what's going to happen is its internal pressure will reflect the fact that I have now compressed this material. So it's a compressible material. Now, we could use the idea that it's just a balloon that's compressible. So we could just say, even if we filled it with water, this would work. All right, yeah, non-compressible. But it doesn't matter. Both things are compressible. The air and the balloon is elastic, so it can expand, and then it'll want to contract. So, and you have to maintain the pressure for it to stay expanded. If I put air into a balloon, I have to put more pressure in to get it to expand. It won't expand unless there's more pressure. And if I let the pressure out, it collapses. So its size will be completely dictating how much pressure is in the balloon. So all you have now is the creation of pressure. So all you did was take something that was at a lower pressure and you turned it into something with a higher pressure by imposing on it with an object. And the simple argument is, if the balloon is light, then the balloon will push back on that object, and the balloon will be able to move its little atoms. All its atoms don't add up to much, so it can transfer the energy to all the atoms, and the balloon will go that way. And the object will just stay right there. And that'll be it. It'll be an elastic transfer. Now, the more likely scenario is that both things will happen. Like when you throw a ball at a car, the ball will come back with more velocity than it was going, because it'll take some of the car's velocity. And the car will keep going, but a little bit slower. So the more likely scenario is the object's going 10, the object will go 9, and the balloon will have collected the difference in terms of the momentum. So the balloon will have some momentum, the object still has some of the momentum, and they'll just divide it up. And so all you're saying in a reflection is that the balloon can't move, it's heavier. So if I said the scenario would be, there's a brick wall here, so the balloon can't move. All it can do is expand, create higher pressure. The higher pressure is still in the balloon, and the balloon is just going to say, the balloon atoms can't go that way. They can't go that way. They can't go that way. It's all pressure. And the only place that there's a place they can go is this way. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to go that way and push the object away, because that's where the lowest pressure is. And that's the simple answer. That just takes the same energy you created. You pressurized this area, this local area. The rest of the balloon doesn't even have to care. It's just that you put pressure in here. The pressure can't move the atoms. The atoms aren't moving. And so the electrons that you are compressing, so you just compressed a bunch of electrons. You could just think of it that way. You took electrons that were this far apart and you made them this far apart. And now the electrons have a choice. They either go that way or that way or that way, or they go some way. And they'll just say which is the easiest way to go. But the point is they want to go this way. They want to just re-expand. And so they just say, where can I re-expand? That way. Because that's the way that compressed me. So I'm likely to go back the way it came. I'm going to just push back. And that's all that happens. It pushes back. So what don't you understand? If the atoms don't move, the energy isn't used. So it has to go somewhere else. If it doesn't move the object, it has to move something. All right, and if it's not moving the internal, that is, it just doesn't make it all hot or something, it has to go somewhere. If it doesn't bend a piece of steel or do something else, it has to go somewhere. And the only place to go is right back where it came. Simple argument. Simple explanation. Asshole. Alright, so the asshole goes on to say, okay, this is what Newton's third law means. So let's say the most classic example of Newton's third law is the cannon. Okay, the cannon fires, the cannonball goes this way, the cannon goes that way. So I can think of different examples, but that's clearly the implication of the third law. That, you know, I jumped forward, I pushed on the ground in the opposite direction. That nothing can be pushed in one way without something turning like this. Okay? And clearly that's because he understands that that's the nature of any expansion. So any contraction creates an expansion. The expansion is going to push in both directions, and that's just a fact. Okay? But clearly Newton's third law, as I've already pointed out, is trying to be universal, and it really isn't, in the sense that if I bang into something and I stop moving, there wasn't any counter force or any opposite reaction that stopped me. It was me giving away the motion. So, yeah, I'm not going to argue the semantics, but clearly what Newton wasn't saying was, you can make free momentum in this direction because you got a rebound in this other direction that never actually happens. So again, the very fact that you actually think it's possible for you to get a 100% reflection and move the object with twice the momentum is still an insanely silly proposition. Okay. At first, the lighter object loses all its motion. So we were talking about a heavier object hitting the lighter object, so now he's changed the scenario. Okay. What can the heavier object do that would be equal and opposite, right? There's nothing it's doing, so I'm just going to argue it again. The only equal and opposite reaction is you hit it, you created higher pressure, and it pushed back. So that's equal and opposite in a sense. There was an exchange made. You exchanged your momentum, gave it to some other object in some other form, and in this case of the balloon, you gave it to it in terms of pressure, and it just merely pushed the pressure back the same way it came instead of pushing the pressure in some other direction. Anytime I pressurize something, I could release the pressure in any direction, right? You do understand that, right? I can poke a hole in a balloon in any direction and make it go in the opposite direction. So we know direction doesn't matter because I can put energy into systems where it doesn't matter what direction I utilize the pressure in. I can choose any direction. So I can clearly change the direction of energy for free. Now, in some cases I can't, like going around a racetrack or something. I have to apply friction, and I have to slow down to be able, I have to use my energy to create the turning force. So in some cases, you can't turn for free. But there's plenty of cases where you can turn without using any energy. Right, it gains the motion that the lighter object lost. Then the lighter object bounces back and gains the motion in the opposite direction. So again, there's this, you can't draw anything. It's just useless doing these word problems, okay? And frankly, it's just garbage. I'm sorry. So show me. Okay, again, what can the heavier object do that is equal and opposite to that? So again, I don't know what you're talking about. So again, just explain to me how, in your theory of kinetic energy, how the hell the gun recoil of 2 joules is an equal and opposite reaction to the 2,000 joules going out the other end. Explain how that's consistent with the third law. It gains equal amount of motion in the initial direction. We're talking about more than just motion here. We're talking about kinetic energy. So again, you're just cheating the argument. Newton's third law just means that when objects interact, i.e. collide, they will experience equal push from each other. And it doesn't matter if the push can't be used. Again, you keep saying this as if the push actually happens even when the object doesn't move. That's Professor Lewin saying, okay, I have a brick wall. I bang something into it and the momentum goes into the brick wall even though it doesn't move. So it has 0 velocity, yet it has twice the momentum. That's illogical mush. So until you prove that the energy went into the wall and something moved, the earth moved, you have nothing. And I'm saying quite obviously the earth doesn't move and the energy merely elastically pushes back. Everything is elastic. I said it in the damn video. Every surface is elastic because every surface is made of electrons. The electrons are automatically elastic. You push on them, they will want to push back because they don't like being too close to each other. So when you push on electrons, you're really pushing electrons against electrons. And that's the repulsive force that's increasing. So that's the elasticity they have. And the deeper the electrons push and more atoms get pushed and there's all this pushing happening, if the pushing can't go through all the atoms, that is, it can't make all of them move because it's not enough energy to push all of the atoms, then the pressure has to go somewhere. In a simple argument, it goes right back where it came from. Damn, not complicated. They will experience equal push from each other, but obviously in opposite directions. So again, you're saying all you have to do is push. You don't have to move. And the argument is, of course, you have to move. So I can compress a spring. I can put a little metal clip around a spring that's compressed. Obviously, there's constant pressure. Obviously, they're pushing against each other. The spring's pushing against the metal's pushing against the spring. It's all happening, right? It's under stress. So if I use something like a piece of plastic, I could actually photograph the stress lines where the plastic is feeling the tension and is likely even vibrating, because of it's not as stiff. And so it yields a little bit and then it goes back, and it yields a little bit, goes back because it's got a little elasticity in the plastic. The plastic is actually elastic like the electrons. So it's acting like a little rubber band. So it's under stress and it's vibrating, and it can do that for 10 years. Because the energy never gets out of that cycle. It never goes anywhere. It's never released anywhere. It never bends anything, permanently. It just keeps doing elastic things, bounce back things. It never does anything permanent. See how else to say it. The energy never escapes the system. So again, obviously, just pushing doesn't mean anything. Pushing doesn't mean the energy went into the wall. And pushing doesn't mean the energy went into the metal and the metal got bent and it did that. None of that happened. The metal didn't move. It didn't yield. So the pushing just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the spring and the metal. All right. I mean, I can't, it's just ridiculous to have to redo all of the same video I already made. Okay, yes. All right, you say the heavier object gains momentum, yet it doesn't move. I didn't say that, you fuck. Oh, amazing. That's what you say. That's what Professor Lewin says. Somehow twice the momentum goes into an object and it doesn't move. That's his statement. You want me to play the fucking clip? Oh, shit. I played it like 5 times in videos. No, I don't say that. Well, that's what Professor Lewin says. Okay, if it gains momentum, it moves. What moves, the earth or the brick wall? Now, I know the brick wall doesn't move, so that's a fact. So then you just have to prove to me that the Earth keeps moving. Again, this was the anvil example. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you people? You can't pay any goddamn attention. I shouldn't have to redo this over and over again. This is their explicit theory shit for brain. All right, I have a hard anvil, heat treated. It doesn't dent. Regular anvils will dent. So a ball bearing might only bounce 10 times on a regular anvil. But on a hardened steel anvil, it'll bounce 200. Okay, if I use a piece of glass. All right, and it'll just bounce. So it'll just keep bouncing. And yes, eventually the bounces get infinitesimally small, but they do keep continuing. And your theory, the theory your physics says, okay, your physicists say, it always happens. So I dropped it with 100. They say 200 went in with the first bounce. And then the second bounce, well, let's say 190. And then this third bounce, 170. And then the fifth bounce, 150. And then maybe 140 and 110. And, you know, it'll go down. But I could easily get up to 1,000. Okay. So I've got 10 times the energy went into the anvil as momentum. That's your theory. All right. And that Professor Lewin's explanation is essentially, well, the anvil's attached to the Earth. So the Earth moved with 10 times the momentum. And I'm saying, no, it didn't. This shit bounced right off the surface. This part didn't even know it happened. It might have heard a little bit of tiny vibration sound. That's it. Tiny bit of sound. Nothing else. Okay, it didn't move. It didn't push any more on the Earth. It didn't do any of that crap. All right, it rejected the force. The atoms didn't move. All right, so let me clean that up. All right, and we'll continue with this bullshit. All right, let's see. You said, all right, no, I didn't say that. It gains momentum, it moves. Momentum means mass times velocity. If velocity is 0, momentum equals 0. So again, that's exactly not what Professor Lewin says. So, what are you arguing? Conventional physics or your own physics? All right, you said, if I throw a ball at a cart and move, the cart moves with less, the ball bounces back. Yes. So the more the cart moves, the less the ball bounces back. That's what I'm saying the absolute truth is. Your theory is, no. The faster I get that other thing to go, the more I'm going to get back. That's your silly argument. If by movement of the cart you mean its velocity, I mean, is there any point in arguing, right? So I think I'll just block you for that sentence alone. I mean, how much of my time do you want to waste? Is there some other way to have fucking goddamn movement, fucker? I mean, it's just too ridiculous. If by movement of the cart you mean its velocity. Fuck. I agree. If you mean its momentum, I can't argue this. This is too ridiculous. Obviously, it can't have momentum without velocity. So what are you arguing about? Momentum that doesn't have velocity? I don't know. If you mean its momentum, how can its momentum not be connected to a velocity? The heavier cart is the heavier the cart is, the more the ball will bounce. So he's completely discounting, okay, how much it moves. That's what he's just saying it doesn't matter how much the cart moves. That has nothing to do with it. It just matters on how heavy the cart is. When we know how fast the cart moves will be completely dictated by how heavy it is and how much momentum it's going to collect. So he's saying that somehow if I use a heavier cart, I can get more energy into it. If I use a lighter cart, I'll get less energy into it, or vice versa. I don't know which one he's arguing. But no, it's not going to matter. The light cart moves more. Doesn't matter how much it moves. I mean, any more than it matters. It's just an exchange of momentum. That's all that's going to be exchanged, not velocities, momentum. All right, you know this, right? Question mark. You can go to fucking hell, jackass. You know that, right? And I hope you do. I hope there is a hell just for you. All right, the only way the ball can bounce back is that it's affected by the force, by a force. So it's not going to be affected by any goddamn force. It has momentum. It's going to create a storage device, right? The ball's going to either compress or the wall's going to compress, but something's going to elastically store the energy, and then it's going to release the energy. We know if I throw a steel ball and the cart doesn't move, that I'm probably going to break, dent, do something, create heat. All of that crap will happen. All right, that first step, that first stops it and then makes it move in the opposite direction. So again, this stopping thing doesn't make any difference. We know the tennis ball doesn't stop in any other sense than it's deformed. So we know the rubber ball doesn't stop in the sense that the surface certainly isn't stopping. It's compressing and changing through that whole process of deceleration. And when it's finally going to get rid of that compression and do the opposite now, so you build up the pressure and then the pressure is going to be released. Those are two different acts. But we know that that's all that's happening. Nothing else in the universe is compressed except the damn ball. All right. According to the third law, the cart must experience equal but opposite force. So again, the fact that there's an opposite force placed in the opposite direction doesn't mean anything. Again, what's the opposite force is just the force. I mean, do you think Newton really thought that you throw a tennis ball at a wall, that the wall absorbed all of the energy and now the ball bounces back for free? You know, no, I don't think he had any notion that that was true. Do you believe objects can change their motion without a force? So again, there's no without a force. You've compressed electrons. The electrons are now compressed. They can move in any direction. And if the easiest direction to move in is the one opposite the direction that compressed them, that's the way they'll move. They're not like a spring, right? I mean, a compressed air in a balloon doesn't have a direction. Okay, it can spring in any direction. So at any point I could push something out. So I could put something on the balloon in a dimple. It's kind of hard to create the equal pressure though. But clearly people have seen that happen, right? You can have a balloon and you put something on top of it. You throw the object and then the thing on top of it bounces up. So now you've used the energy. So you get less back. Because when you throw it in, you're going to give the energy to something else, the momentum. Do you think you can knock something up in the air and get all the energy back again? Do you think that's possible? So you can put the energy in this way, pop something up that way, and you won't use the energy? You'll have both things back. You'll get this back, and you'll do this for free? No. All right. Do you believe objects can change their motion without a force? So again, obviously I do not, and I think objects carry force, and all they can do is exchange it. So again, the key word is exchange. And I think Newton used the key word exchange more than one time. So I don't think Newton had any problem understanding that motion moves from one object to another, just as Descartes had stated. And again, Newton wouldn't say, if I have seen further than Descartes, okay, I stood on the shoulders of giants. I don't think he would have said that if he thought Descartes was full of shit. All right, Newton did talk about subtracting the momentum. So again, you say so, and I say bullshit. Okay, he talked about the difference. So again, you can keep saying that, and obviously the difference can just be this goes this way this much, this goes this way this much. That's a huge difference. Okay, how do you get the difference between A and B? It's A minus B. So again, you can play the game. I'm going to argue that that's not how Newton saw it. He saw it as all motion. Okay, so again, it doesn't really matter, frankly, because the real subject is kinetic energy. And whether or not Newton was fooled into thinking it was possible to make free momentum, which I don't think he could believe, and then argue there was no perpetual energy. I mean, how can you argue against perpetual energy if I can push the ball, have the energy just bounce back between two rubber balls, and then I can pop things up and down all day long. So I can create all kinds of extra motion, okay, by just creating a closed system of reflections, because I'm going to get all my energy back, even though I put the energy into something else. I made something else move, but I get all the energy back. I'm saying that's garbage as a theory. It's absolute nonsense. So that you have to argue that one argument, somehow explain to me how that's ever going to be possible and not be free energy. You know, that you could ever throw something at a system, okay, with motion, velocity, momentum, put it in, cause some other action, launching a rocket, and get all your energy back, in the sense that you recompress the spring that you compressed. So you launched with a compressed spring at a velocity, and now the spring's going to be recompressed again. Now we know springs aren't very efficient, so let's just say an ideal spring. So let's use a pressurized balloon, which probably has a better. I'm just trying to think of how it would be any different elastically, that it might operate at a higher speed because there's more surface area, but probably doesn't matter. So I have to think of something that's elastic at very high speeds. Moves a very tiny distance maybe. So some like very stiff metal might be a very good spring because it moves very little. So it uses up very little momentum. So even if it vibrates afterwards, it's very little vibration. Well, anyway, doesn't matter. The point is there's no way I can do both things. There's no way I can get the energy back and put it into an object. I can't make the object go away. It's like the Newton's cradle. Again, you think Newton was too stupid? He didn't realize, I mean, he actually believed it was possible that I could bang something into something and only transfer the same exact energy I put in. But somehow magically, if I hit a heavier object, I get more energy than I put in. You really think he believed that? So the same exact event, I hit a heavier object, I get more energy. You think so? I mean, this one stops dead. I hit this lighter thing, it stops dead. I hit this heavy thing, I put more energy into this, and I also get my energy back. I get this 50 back. So I hit the lighter object, I don't get 50 back, I don't get anything back. My 100 goes into it, and that's it. That's all there is. But if I make it heavier and heavier and heavier, somehow I get more and more energy. All the way up to 300, 3 times the energy I've started with. I'm saying that's not energy conservation, and that's free energy. You have to counter the argument that that's not. You have to show me how it's not free energy. I gave the illustration of a device you could build and put it in space and see if it would work for a while. Yeah, where you just do what I said. It just keeps bouncing back and forth, and it keeps hitting the object. The object starts moving faster and faster, so the amount of pushing it can do gets less and less, but it's going to push it all the way up to its speed. So if I use a 100 pounds and I push it with something moving 1 pound, I'm going to be using a very high velocity, pushing a very large object, and eventually I'll get up to the maximum speed, which is the speed that this thing is bouncing at. And eventually I'll get that 100 pounds to go exactly that speed. Because you're saying I can conserve all of the energy in the sense I get all of my energy back. I gave it twice as much energy and I get all the energy back. That's bullshit. You should concede there's something wrong with the theory if that's what physicists at MIT are teaching. If that's what they're teaching at MIT, you should be able to say there's something wrong with their theory. You should.